This episode is brought to you by the Denver Art Museum. Check out the Denver Art Museum's next late-night event, Untitled Artist Takeover, happening on Friday, April 25th from 6 to 10 p.m. Experience a vibrant night of art, performances, hands-on art making, a pop-up bar, and unique experiences led by local artists Buffalo Barbie and Sarah Ortegon Highwalking. Drop by a spoken word performance or join in on the excitement of a hat and boot dance inside one of the galleries. It's a nighttime atmosphere, which automatically changes how the museum feels. And the local connection, obviously, is my favorite part about Untitled, is like getting to see local artists in this revered space. I don't know. It's just, I've seen so many of my friends do this, and I've also found new artists in Denver through going to Untitled. So I'm excited to check this out. Untitled Artist Takeover is included in general admission and free for Denver Art Museum members. Reserve your tickets today at denverartmuseum.org. That's denverartmuseum.org. This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Ever wish you could get farm fresh produce, eggs, dairy, and meat delivered right to your door? Well, thanks to Pine Melon, it's easy to have the Colorado Farmers Market delivered. Get all your small batch local faves you can't find at the chain grocery store dropped right on your doorstep. Simply visit pinemelon.com or download the app and use our code CityCast to get 75% off your first time. That's pinemelon.com, and don't forget, use our code CityCast to get 75% off. Today on CityCast Denver, the reviews for downtown Denver are in, and they are not great. But the mayor has a complicated new plan to turn things around with big money attached, and it's just now getting put into action. So we called up my old boss, Brad Siegel, who has worked in Denver's urban planning world for decades, to explain how all this is supposed to work and what could go wrong. Today is Monday, April 21st. I'm Bree Davies, and here's what Denver's talking about. Hey, before we get to the show, I have an announcement. We're kicking off our spring membership campaign, and we have a new name. CityCast members are now called CityCast Neighbors, a name that we think better reflects the community spirit and local connection at the heart of our work. We want to help make the city feel more like a neighborhood. Oh, and we've expanded member benefits. Now, in addition to ad-free listening and an exclusive weekly events preview, you'll also get regular exclusive members-only events like happy hours, volunteering meetups, insider tours, and more. You'll also get to shout out a local business or nonprofit that makes the city better in the podcast and newsletter. And when you join during this campaign, you'll receive a neighbor-exclusive coffee mug as a thank you. See a full list of benefits and sign up to become a better neighbor at membership.citycast.fm. That's membership.citycast.fm. Okay, on with the show. Brad Siegel, welcome back to CityCast Denver.
Thanks, Bree. It's a delight to be back.
So I have to level with you and ask you, you had this beautiful office on Colfax, and you have recently moved downtown to the 16th Street Mall, which I have to be honest is a little questionable of a change. Why move downtown?
Well, there were 2 or 3 reasons for that. One, yes, we had a beautiful office on Colfax in a really problematic building. So that building created lots of problems in a lot of different ways that would take the entire podcast to explain.
Sure.
So, and then secondly, what I do, what I've done with my career, what our company does is very downtown focused. We work with downtowns all over the country. And the first 22 years we were in Lodo. Then that got a little kind of Tony for us. So we moved up to Colfax, and it's been 10 years there. So coming back downtown is full circle. And honestly, I guess the third reason is downtown needs energy, guys. Anybody out there who's looking to move a business, downtown needs energy. There is energy here. It's been far more lively down here than we expected, honestly.
Really?
Yes. And you can get great rent deals too. So there's that.
Maybe, and you needed to walk your Walk your talk a little bit.
Yeah.
You do downtown, you should be downtown.
It works for us.
That's fair. So before we get into the mayor's big plan, I know you look at a lot of downtowns across the country. What's your analysis of where Denver's downtown is at right now in terms of the pandemic rebound?
So in terms of the pandemic rebound, we actually looked at that really closely. We did work the end of 23 for the downtown partnership. And we looked at exactly that. How was downtown rebounding? And our focus was also on storefront vitality. And to make a long story short, downtown Denver today is really two downtowns. So if you look at lower downtown, if you look at the area around Union Station, it's rebounded quite well. And occupancies are high, sales are stable. Ground floor still struggles a bit. But from a variety of measures, lower downtown is doing well. And nationally, it's above average. Then if you look at upper downtown, which is where our new office is currently located.
Which is like we're on Welton and 16th Street right now.
16th, and anywhere between Arapahoe and Lincoln is really upper downtown. Struggling. So, and by national measures. And it's mostly because it's two reasons. One, return to work is lagging primarily because we got tech heavy. And tech heavy cities have lagged on return to work.
Is it because most folks are working remotely?
A lot of tech people are either working remotely or hybrid, sort of exaggerated hybrid. That's slowly changing, but that's one reason Denver struggled. The other reason is the buildings we have down here. And that's something actually we talked about when I was last on the show, is we talked about what to do with all these 70s and 80s high rises. And Denver has an extraordinary collection of 70s and 80s high rises in the upper downtown area. And a lot of them are functionally obsolete at this point. It's very difficult to retrofit them, virtually impossible to convert them to residential. And that's really the heart of the ongoing struggle for downtown Denver.
We'll put a link in the show notes because that was a really interesting conversation where you talked about the difference between a turn of the century building and adaptively reusing it versus, like you said, these 70s and 80s buildings. But okay, let's move on to this bigger conversation about the Denver Downtown Development Authority. Before we get into that, I just want you to disclose the city was your client on part of this work, correct?
Correct. We were the city's advisor on what's called the plan of development for the downtown Denver DDA. It needs a catchy name.
It really does.
But I call it the Denver DDA. That's the quickest way to get it out of your mouth. So we were the city's advisor on the Denver DDA. And we were selected. It was a competitive process. They were looking for a consultant to advise on putting together what's called the plan of development. And the plan of development essentially is the business plan for the DDA. And so we worked with Denver last year. All this work was roughly March to November of last year to help draft, under the direction of the city, to draft the plan of development, which governs the DDA today. And the reason we were selected is we just do a lot of that work. We've put together DDAs throughout the state of Colorado. There's about a half dozen states in the United States that have DDAs. So we've worked in Michigan, Florida, others that have these mechanisms.
Well, let's talk about the mechanism because, so last November, voters agreed to let the city take on $570 million in debt to expand this Denver Downtown Development Authority that you were just talking about. So we're just now seeing some of this money being spent, but I have to say I don't quite understand how it's supposed to work. Like, can you explain what the DDA is? How does it work?
How it gets its money?
Yeah, and what does it do with, how does this all work?
So how it gets its money is through something called tax increment financing, and it's a tool that in the state of Colorado can be used by two types of organizations. It can be used by urban renewal, which, is big, bad urban renewal.
I was going to say that's a controversial.
Yes. Or it can be used by a DDA. And what tax increment financing is, it's not a new tax, but it allows an area, a downtown in the case of a DDA, to capture future revenues from increases in property value and sales. So the best example is what happened here in Denver. So the Denver DDA was created in 2008 to pay off bonds for Union Station. And $400 million in bonds were issued, and that was going to be paid by increased revenue from new development in and around Union Station. And what happened is that area just boomed. And the build out around Union Station occurred in 5, 6, 7, 8 years, where it was projected to take 30 years. So what happened is there was all this new tax revenue from new buildings, from new stores, from new restaurants. And then last year, why the city went through the exercise last year, is the Union Station bonds, that obligation, essentially was going to be paid off early. It was going to be paid off in 16 years, not in 30 years.
So that tax increment financing, that's like the getting the money from the taxes paid off this debt that we had accrued to build Unions, or to rebuild Union Station itself.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's precisely it. So it's, and that's what we did with a lot of our time last year, was trying to explain this to folks, because it's not a new tax. It's revenue from the increased value, the increased sales. So when voters voted, and the voters were just the voters within the boundaries of the DDA. So that's another thing to be clear.
Couple thousand voters.
Yeah, there were a couple thousand eligible voters, and I don't know, I think the vote was, 500 to 200 or something. But there were only a couple thousand eligible voters because it was just around Union Station. So that ballot language looks forbidding. $570 million. But that is already being generated through the new development around Union Station. So the choice for the city was, do we just let this end because we've paid off our bonds and call it a day? We built, Union Station, and congratulations. Or do we expand the DDA now that we've got a crisis, an economic crisis throughout downtown post-pandemic, and use this revenue to assist in downtown's next cycle of revitalization? So that was what happened last year, was instead of just letting it pay off its bonds and go away, the city, I think wisely, chose to, let's look at expanding this and continue to use this tax increment in an area that really needs it.
So Union Station is an easy thing to look at and see how this worked, right? We got this revitalization of this gorgeous underutilized building. Like you said, all the development that came out around it. I'm thinking about right now with this new money coming in. I've heard the mayor's already spending some of this money on like more police, but like what kinds of projects could we see or imagine being funded with this money in this DDA version?
So a couple of real quick things. The original DDA was an anomaly. Okay, the Union Station DDA was unusual to use a DDA for one project. So usually DDAs are used like this next cycle. So DDAs typically are downtown wide, and they're looking at improvements throughout the downtown area. So you asked, what can it do? Well, that's where it gets to the plan of development and the business plan we essentially put together for it. So there are 5 different categories of investment within that plan of development. They include adaptive reuse, so reusing buildings, historic preservation, converting an office building to residential, building new stuff, again, like new residential, new civic purposes. We talked about more amenities downtown, so we talked about public space. A DDA can do both private and public. So do we want more green space? Do we want more tree canopy? Do we want those types of things? We talk about mobility and more ways for people to get around downtown, so more facilities for bikes and for pedestrian enhancements, that type of thing. And then lastly, not least, and something that hopefully I know, Bree Davies, you would appreciate, there's a whole category in arts and culture.
Really?
Yes. And can we invest in arts and culture, and not just the big facilities, but can we spread that sort of spread an arts and culture ethos that really doesn't exist in a lot of downtown and create that? So
like funding public art projects?
Yes.
Or, okay.
Yeah. I mean, public art, maybe more theaters, more music venues, you could do a variety of things. The one thing to note is that most of the investment from a DDA typically is in built things, is in capital.
Now I'm just dreaming about that DIY venue I want to see on the 16th Street Mall. Could be a possibility.
Submit an application to the DDDA.
This episode is brought to you by Pine Melon. Pine Melon is a unique local grocery delivery service. Think of it as the Colorado Farmers Market delivered. Besides just supporting local farmers and businesses, Pine Melon is also helping the environment. Each of their delivery vans keeps 50 cars off the street, and their returnable and reusable delivery boxes save 5,000 grocery bags every single week. This spring, Pine Melon is asking Denverites to make a pledge to support local food just once a month, and they're going to make it super easy for you. First-time customers get 75% off your first order. Just use the code CityCast. When you choose food that's grown, raised, and crafted right here in Colorado, you're choosing to protect the environment, improve your health, and help your community thrive. Whether you're getting some fresh produce delivered or the ingredients to make your favorite cookie recipe, it's cool to know you're making a difference. Visit pinemelon.com or download the app and use our coupon code CityCast to get started with 75% off. That's pinemelon.com and use the code CityCast to get 75% off. This episode is brought to you by Aura Frames. What does your mom want for Mother's Day? Well, my mom always just wants pictures of her kids all together with her grandkids. And this is a tall order because we don't all live in the same place. So I hate to spoil this for you, Brooke, because I know you're listening, but you're getting an Aura digital picture frame for Mother's Day, which is coming up soon, like May 11th. So don't forget. Aura Frames was named the best digital photo frame by Wirecutter and featured in 495 gift guides last year. So next time you need to call your mom, you can also send her a new pic of you from that trip you've been telling her all about, right from your phone. I think the only picture my mom has of all of us together is at Casa Bonita. It's the only time maybe all of us were together. Aura has a great deal for Mother's Day, too. For a limited time, listeners can save on the perfect gift by visiting auraframes.com to get $35 off plus free shipping on their best-selling Carver mat frame. That's AURA frames.com. Use promo code CityCast. Support the show by mentioning us at checkout. Terms and conditions apply.
What sort of promises have you made to yourself this year? Getting in better shape, eating healthier, saving more money, traveling somewhere new? What about discovering a new culture by learning a new language? With Babbel, you can do that in just a few weeks. I'm David Plotz, the CEO of CityCast, and I've been learning Spanish with Babbel. Babbel's quick 10-minute lessons, handcrafted by over 200 language experts, get you to begin speaking your new language in 3 weeks or whatever pace you choose. And because conversing is the key to really understanding each other in new languages, Babbel is designed using practical, real-world conversations. The Spanish I learned on Babbel really helped me on a recent trip to Mexico City, ordering in restaurants, shopping at the textile market, cheering on at the Lucha Libre, and I've been keeping it up since I got home. You're a podcast listener. I know that because you're listening here. I bet you'll love Babbel's new podcasts. On Eavesdrop in Espanol, which I listen to, you get to listen to a real conversation, then have the teacher host explain back to you. Then you listen again and catch everything. And you can even read along in the transcript. It's a really fun and effective way to learn. Let's get more of you talking in a new language. Babbel is gifting CityCast listeners 60% off subscriptions at babbel.com/CityCast. Get up to 60% off at babbel.com/CityCast. Spelled BABBEL.com/CityCast. Babbel.com/CityCast. Rules and restrictions may apply.
Now, something else I'm thinking about is this all sounds wonderful, but the problems that we've been talking about downtown are like people are concerned about crime. There's business owners have concerns. How is spending this money going to fix those problems?
Well, and that's sort of the conundrum with the DDA because the benefits are not going to be immediate. So if we are creating more green space, if we're converting office buildings, at a minimum, that's going to take a few years to build momentum. And, folks are right. There are issues on the streets. Although I will say now, having been down here a month, A lot of the fear and loathing about downtown is frankly just overblown.
You're not seeing it.
I'm not. It was here. I mean, I won't dispute that downtown was a hot mess, during the pandemic and afterwards for a period of time. But what I'm seeing, at least, and not just during the workday, I'm seeing more people, and we're in the middle of kind of the dead zone, if you will, here at 16th and Welton. But I'm seeing people on the streets. I'm seeing a lot of young people down here, and I'm seeing people not just going to work, but I'm seeing people jogging and walking their dogs and all of that. So I'm seeing a lot of that. My team, we've only been down here a month, but we haven't felt, unsafe necessarily. I think part of the problem is this. I think that, and we saw this, I did this work back in the 80s and 90s. So I've been at this with this city almost 40 years.
You've seen, I kind of wanted to ask you about this. You've seen downtown be in a similar position, would you say?
Worse.
Okay.
Yeah, and particularly listeners who maybe were born after the 80s. Just understand that things are challenging down here, but it's nowhere near what we were dealing with in the 80s. So in the 80s, we had a similar real estate collapse, but there was no market for anything. Nobody wanted to be downtown. Nobody lived down here. It wasn't cool to come down here. It was just dead as a doornail. So we were really creating reasons to have a downtown and to have a city. So fast forward, here we are today. I'm not minimizing today's challenges, but I'm just trying to put it in perspective that we can overcome this. This is kind of it's a bit of a one-dimensional challenge in that a lot of it is because of the change in office work patterns. And if we can repopulate some of these buildings and
with other uses that are not just dependent on all the office workers that would come downtown and then leave.
Well, there's actually two parts of that. We were dependent on office workers, and we could build a building, we could fill it up with office workers. And in doing that for 30 years, we forgot about creating a nice downtown. So
that offers other things.
So upper downtown in particular, there's a lot of hardscape. There's a lot of concrete. It's not particularly...
It's not amenable to human interaction.
Yeah. So the cool thing here is, and this is where the DDA can play into it, is we have the opportunity for another generation of reinvention of downtown Denver and really create more of a neighborhood with true neighborhood type amenities, which we never really have done well here.
Yeah, I'm just thinking about, like, say, the giant empty parking lot on the backside of the pavilions.
Yeah.
It has been a giant empty parking lot next to a wall for ever since they built it 30 years ago. I imagine, what if we could put a park in there and put a mural on the backside of that? That would change how it feels to be down here. So that would be something that could happen through this funding.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what excites me. I said I've been at this for a while, and that's what sort of excites me in this next chapter is the opportunity for reinvention and getting it right as a place to not just work, but to live and a place that you want to be. When we were talking about the DDA last year with resident groups down here, I said the end goal for downtown Denver should be that in 10 years from now, that families with kids choose to live here. That should be the end goal, and that should be the vision, because right now that ain't happening.
That hasn't been true in my lifetime.
Ever.
It's just not built for that, but that could be the evolution of
It could be the
downtown.
evolution, and there are other cities that have been more deliberate about making their downtowns more livable and creating cool amenities and are doing much better with that.
Speaking of amenities, like, what do you think city officials would want to talk about building when it comes to amenities? Like, what else is out there? Is there anything that we think Denver is interested in other than parks or housing?
Well, I'll give you a couple examples. I will give you one that's in the plan of development, and I'll give you one that's just been gnawing at me for 30 years.
Perfect. I love a hill you want to die on, or a...
Well, I told my wife, this is my legacy, is what I'm going to share with you. It'd get me in trouble. So anyway, the one that's in the plan of development that is low hanging fruit is childcare.
Yeah.
And childcare in the near term for people who work downtown, and that's going to help if you want to keep your office building an office building. That's going to help you recruit employees. So that's one of the eligible uses that we were deliberate about placing in the plan of development, and an example of an amenity. And related to that, you could have adjacent green spaces with playgrounds or fountains, or, the one sort of spray fountain we have down here is Union Station. And
right. And that's at one very end
crowded with kids during the summer.
Totally.
It's just crowded with kids. The other one that's been in my craw is Denver does not have a town square. So we have a park. We have this giant park.
I would think Civic Center is what folks think of.
But where's that in the heart of downtown Denver? We don't have that place where people gather, and
it tends to spread. Maybe
it tends
down
to spread.
16th
It's a
Street
very linear downtown, up and down downtown. So I'm just going to throw it out there. I mean, we talked about this. We worked on the last downtown plan that was done 20 years ago. The Federal Reserve at 16th and Arapahoe.
Oh, yeah. Beautiful building.
Yeah, gorgeous. It's a brutalist building. It was there to store money. That's why it was built. It's a whole city block. It's a city block between Skyline Park and the Denver Center, the Performing Arts Center.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I was thinking of a different building. Okay, now I can picture it.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. Well, you can't think of it because it's totally nondescript.
I was thinking of a much older, I'm thinking of the court building that's over there. Okay.
And I don't know, it may be as easy these days as just sending, a message on X to Elon to say, get rid of the Federal Reserve. But seriously, that could be such a signature space for Denver, a town square, a place we'd gather and celebrate things, on a smaller scale than Civic Center Park. I mean, the Nuggets bring home the world championship will be at Civic Center Park. But anything else, and a place to hang out and to take selfies, and a signature space for Denver, we just don't have that. And so that's another example. It's a little extreme, and I'm throwing my own little spin on it.
But it's something that could happen with this. Just trying to think of what other ways this money could be used.
Downtown Denver DDA could buy the Federal Reserve. Why not?
So I'm thinking about, I'm downtown every week. Now you're downtown. I see the changes on the 16th Street Mall, right? They've been slowly reopening it. But there's still these issues that business owners are complaining about. I'm just thinking about, with the Union Station project, you could see the change, like you said, and it was very quick. Buildings started, a whole new neighborhood was built behind it. When are we going to start seeing, can we start seeing this in practice pretty soon happening in this part? Or what would it look like?
Yeah, yes-ish is going to be my answer on that. So in terms of immediate gratification, DDA is really hard to do that because, again, you're investing in projects. You're investing in... And
if you adaptively reuse a building, it's going
to take a few years. I mean, it's just going to take a few years to make some of this stuff happen. However, having said that, you could see impacts in a number of ways. First of all, don't discount the power of reopening the 16th Street. They're not going to call it mall, right?
I know, right. I'm sorry, 16th Street.
All us Denverites have to retrain ourselves. But the reopening of 16th Street is going to be a big, big deal. The new blocks are nice. I mean, they really have improved that space. And once it's reopened, and once restaurants have their chairs back out in the public area, fingers crossed that a lot of those storefronts will repopulate pretty quickly. It is grim. I mean, we walk up and down 16th Street, there's a ton of vacancies. On the other hand, there's a ton of opportunities when that thing opens. So I think that's going to be a big potential springboard for downtown. And that's coming, they're talking about a partial opening by Memorial Day and then the whole thing done by Labor Day. That's great. Get that.
So maybe a year from now, we might be able to actually feel that difference.
I think
walking down.
I think you'll feel it this summer. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you feel it now just to be able to walk on even if the stores, even with the empty storefronts, you feel the difference because the construction was just mind-bogglingly disruptive. But back to the DDA. So the DDA, yes, it's going to invest in a lot of projects, but it also has the opportunities to do some more immediate things. So that is the source of money for the police announcement recently. I mean, I get it. I know why they wanted to make a splash on safety and security. I would argue that's largely optics. And there was pressure from people who are running businesses who've got some real challenges, who have got real problems. So they are responding to legitimate concerns from business people. So I think that's and for any urban area to work, it's got to be safe. I mean, it's foundational. So that, is an example, maybe not the best example, but they can do some quick activations, public art. They could do some interim things with public spaces. What's fascinating to me is the DDA has invited proposals from just about anybody, and they're going through their first cycle of proposals right now. They're evaluating that.
So we'll be seeing maybe some of those projects.
Yeah, and I hope we see a mix of stuff. I hope we see, 2 or 3, pretty significant investments, maybe in buildings, maybe 1 or 2 significant investments in public spaces. And then to your point, maybe there's a half dozen quick wins that will show visible improvements or activity right off the bat. I think that'd be great.
Can I submit for a series of public restrooms? Is that a project that could be funded by the DDA?
Absolutely.
Oh, I love it.
That's totally eligible.
Okay. Well,
yeah, and needed.
Crossing fingers.
Yeah.
Okay, this sounds like a great plan, Brad, but I'm worried. Like, what do you worry about when it comes to downtown Denver? Is there something looming now that could go really wrong?
Well, there's one more shoe to drop down here. So the biggest concern is, the safety issue, I think resolves itself to a degree as more and more people come down here, and more people are coming down here. But the one next shoe to drop, which no one is really talking about, is the valuation. The property tax base of downtown Denver is about ready to collapse. And so I'll just give you an example. There's 2 high-rises that are catty-corner to our new office. So it's 17th and Weldon. And 20 years ago, those buildings sold for $120 million. They're on the assessor. The assessor appraises that at, $100 and something million. 3-4 weeks ago, those 2 buildings sold for $3 million total. $3 million. So for the price of a townhouse in Cherry Creek, you could buy 2 40-story buildings. For the reuse of the buildings, that's actually good news, because it allows someone to come in and say, hey, we're going to just do something totally new with these buildings. They're not going to be office buildings. We may even knock one of those down. So from a reuse standpoint, that's good news. The bad news is the property tax base of downtown Denver is evaporating before our eyes.
Because there's more buildings like these ones you're describing.
There are several dozen buildings like this, and we're now in the cycle of reassessment where valuation is going to be adjusted. And so what you're going to see is a precipitous drop or evaporation of property tax base in downtown Denver. Billions are going to come off the books. That's a problem. Property tax funds, it funds city services to a degree, but it also funds your schools, Denver public schools. So there's some ability to recalibrate that, and what it might do, it might push more tax burden on every homeowner in Denver, because it'll recalibrate so that schools stay relatively whole. So this becomes everybody's issue. Downtown Denver. It becomes relevant to everybody in the city. And this is another reason why the downtown DDA timing is so important, because we're talking not just about nice stuff downtown, but we're talking about an economic crisis that requires reinvestment and an incentive to reinvest in many of these buildings and rebuild a tax base.
Oh boy. I'm just like, yeah, what do you do with this huge building that no one is, there's no offices in it. And we've talked about the cost of renovating for reuse. It's just.
Let me leave you with an example of a city that faced a similar situation and actually did it right.
Okay.
So there's hope.
Yeah.
And again, I think the reevaluation is just, it's a market adjustment. And in some ways it's good news because it allows for these obsolete buildings to be reused. But look at Calgary, Alberta. And in fact, last year, the Downtown Partnership sent 60 of us up there to Calgary to see what was going on up there. And 10 years ago, they went through this. They had oil and gas companies fled. They had vacancies in their office buildings. They had a collapse of value, and suddenly every taxpayer in Calgary was paying more because downtown was generating less. So they created an incentive. It's similar to the DDA, and they created, I think it was a couple $100 million of Canadian, which is still like real money. And the beauty of what they did in Calgary, which I hope will inspire Denver, is then they created a very simple mission and purpose. They said, we have an economic crisis. Our sole goal of this 200 million plus that they put into it was to reduce 5 or 6 million square feet of obsolete office space from downtown, period. And we don't care how you do it. So if you convert it to housing, great. If you amenitize an office building and it's still offices, great. If you tear down a building and build something new, that's great. The other thing they did in Calgary is they created a dedicated team from the city that just focuses on downtown, So it's one-stop shopping, if you will, if you want to invest in downtown. So not only do they have the financing, but the permitting, the development review, all of that is by one team solely focused on making this happen in downtown Calgary. And I am hopeful that we will be inspired by that type of model, because I think we will be facing an economic challenge of similar proportion here. Probably later this year, this will hit when new valuations are released.
Oh, so scary.
It's not scary. Come on, we'll get through.
Brad Siegel, thank you so much. This is lovely as always.
Bree, it was a pleasure and glad to have you at our beautiful new digs on Welton Street.
If you haven't yet joined, a reminder that you can sign up at membership.citycast.fm, and we'll send you an adorable CityCast Denver Neighbors mug as a welcome gift. Again, that's membership.citycast.fm. Thank you. That's all for today here on CityCast Denver. If you enjoyed this show, why not take a minute to tell the staff at the Federal Reserve Building about us? Rate the show wherever you get your podcasts, and subscribe to our morning newsletter and learn more about us at denver.citycast.fm. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye-bye. Shout out to Keith Stevens. He says he joined the membership program because of the, quote, in-depth local journalism without the bummer of the 24-hour news cycle. I hear you. Thanks, Keith.
Hi, I'm Michael Fry, and I've lived in Denver for 15 years. I read a lot of newsletters, but CityCast Hey Denver newsletter is the one I never skip. I love it because it's not divisive, it's not ugly, it's helpful. It's like my really nice neighbor who I run into on the way to work who says, "Hey, did you hear about that thing?" I recently spent some time living abroad in Portugal, and CityCast Denver was the thing that helped me stay connected to my city. And I support CityCast Denver because I want to make sure it sticks around. The information is valuable, and the people providing it really care. And to prove that, I'll let you in on a secret, which is that when you reply to Hey Denver, the author, Peyton Garcia, actually emails you back. CityCast Denver is such an important service to the city, and you can support it too by becoming a CityCast Denver neighbor. Just go to membership.citycast.fm and sign up. And that's membership.citycast.fm.